Hi. About 2 years ago, I took this picture while visiting a sawmill situated deep in the rainforest of Congo-Brazzaville. And even in this extremely remote corner of the world, the evidence of globalization is clear. The local logging company cuts trees in their concession to supply tropical hardwood to global markets. But don't think this story is only about faraway places, because the fact that these planks are labeled with the words Destination Anvers is a stark reminder that what happens there is somehow connected to our lives, perhaps even to you personally, because who knows, maybe this wood now makes up your fancy parquet floor. Logging poses a grave threat to the rainforests of Central Africa, South America, and Southeast Asia. Other resource extraction industries like mining and agricultural activities such as palm oil plantations are also important drivers of deforestation. This has far-reaching impacts. Put simply, the cutting of every tree diminishes the planet's capacity to offset carbon emissions and thus contributes to global climate change and its worrying consequences like extreme weather events, drought, rising sea levels, etc. This trend is unlikely to simply stop. The countries in question consider the exploitation of natural resources to be essential to their economic development, and the global demand for the resulting commodities, such as wood, is also unlikely to shrink. But there may still be some hope. Since a few decades, authorities, NGOs, and even the private sector have taken steps to protect chunks of rainforests and to push loggers to adopt more sustainable practices. For example, the EU has adopted legal requirements for imported wood and has signed agreements with supplier countries for the rules to be upheld and checked locally. The forestry industry has also adopted or taken initiatives of its own to set standards for sustainable logging and to issue certificates like the well-known FSC label for products that meet the requirements. But the problem is far from solved. Illegal logging is estimated to account for up to 90% of the total forestry output of tropical countries. And an important reason is the difficulty of policing these huge, hard-to-reach areas, especially in countries with weak governance and widespread corruption. Local authorities are typically understaffed, and external auditors only make short, infrequent visits. For conservation or sustainable exploitation to succeed, there is a need for extensive, perhaps almost continuous monitoring of the situation on the ground to ensure that legal or certification requirements are respected. Besides environmental considerations, like not cutting trees under a certain age, the requirements for logging companies also cover social aspects. Because even though seen from above, this forest may seem devoid of human presence, it is actually home to a surprising number of people. Like similar environments elsewhere, the Congolese rainforest is inhabited by indigenous communities living in traditional ways, as well as other forest-dependent groups. These people are often marginalized in their own countries, and they suffer directly from the destruction of their environment. However, as citizens of the forest, they have a unique perspective on what takes place on a day-to-day basis, and also on the longer-term processes that are affecting their environmental and socio-economic context. We believe that local communities can play an important role in the conservation or sustainable exploitation of natural resources, and in doing so may also be able to protect their way of life. But how? Through a combination of citizen participation and new technology. Here we see community members using a smartphone to record which parts of the forests are important to them and to monitor logging activity around their settlement. By giving forest communities the means and possibly compensation to collect this information and to share it with well-meaning logging companies or their auditors and authorities or NGOs, we aim to enable them to apply their unique knowledge to contribute to improved management of the forest and to empower them in their relations with loggers, conservationists, and authorities. Our interdisciplinary research group at University College London was founded to enable and explore such scenarios. We are called the Extreme Citizen Science Group, or EXCITES for short, because we take ideas from the movement of citizen science, which lets citizens contribute to scientific research or civic action by measuring and mapping various phenomena, usually in Western cities. And to investigate whether these practices can be applied in more extreme contexts, We are setting up concrete projects in collaboration with local partners, primarily in Congo-Brazzaville. And to explain why this is an extreme context, I will now discuss 3 of the main challenges we face. The first challenge is about literacy, and there are 2 sides to it. First, literacy in the strict sense. Most of our users have not enjoyed or received formal schooling and thus do not read or write. Therefore, the data collection app cannot contain text or numbers. Instead, we use a pictorial interface consisting of images that correspond to objects, events, or opinions that match the local context. Designing a proper set of such icons requires a participatory approach. Members of our team or local partners will visit communities of potential participants, and after introducing the goals and risks of the project, we'll organize a discussion about icon prototypes on paper cards. We evaluate whether the icons are interpreted as intended, whether they correspond to situations that are considered relevant and which people want to report about, and whether the set covers a wide enough range of possibilities to adequately describe the situation as the community perceives it. We also evaluate which ways of ordering and classifying the icons make most sense to people, and we apply this knowledge when designing the app interface in which the icons will appear. And this is what we typically end up with. We call this a pictorial decision tree. Here, a user would start at the blue bordered screen in the middle, where they are giving 3 options. For example, the second image relates to the community consultations which Congolese logging companies are obliged by law to conduct before cutting trees near where people live. Clicking here leads to a second screen with 4 possibilities. And the 4th image here corresponds, or it means that the locals have been consulted and that some kind of agreement was reached, which usually means they have been promised compensation. Clicking there, therefore, leads to a 3rd screen where they can record the types of compensation. For example, the logging company may have promised to build a school, but may or may not have kept the promise. Now for the second side of the literacy challenge, in the broader technological sense. The majority of our users do not own, and in some cases have never even seen, a mobile phone, let alone a smartphone. Hence, they lack the experience and confidence to interact with the software and the device itself. Therefore, training is key and must happen gradually. One important lesson we have learned is not to start off by showing devices, because it tends to distract or scare people. And this is why, as shown before, we start by introducing the project and the icons using paper cards. Only after that, we bring out the phones and show how to interact with them. And a lot of time is spent training people to become familiar with the devices and learn to navigate the interface. And like everywhere, we often see that some people are just naturally better at it than others. And this is one reason we always try to recruit a relatively large and diverse audience of training participants, including men and women, young and old. And the idea is that quick learners can become trainers themselves or teachers themselves, and that the most competent individuals can be nominated by their peers to become the main users of the system in the future. The software we use to make all of this possible is called Sapelli, and it's sort of my baby as I'm the main architect and developer. It's a mobile data collection platform for Android phones and tablets, and besides those pictorial decision trees, users can also take pictures, record audio and video, and geotag everything. And while it's primarily designed for non-literate users, it can also take textual and numerical input. The name Sapelli is symbolic, and it refers to a Central African tree species which is valued equally by locals, for whom it is a source of delicious caterpillars, and by loggers, for whom it's a source of very lucrative timber. Now for the second challenge. Getting data collected in the forests to other places where it can be put to use is anything but obvious in a region where mobile network coverage is still very sparse and internet connectivity largely absent. This is why we are spending a great deal of effort to equip Sapelli with a flexible data transmission system which can autonomously detect the presence of mobile phone or Wi-Fi networks, then transmit stored data using either SMS messages or the internet, all without the user having to do anything. This way, we can aggregate data on another mobile device or on a server from where it can then be shared, analyzed, or visualized on a map. Talking about maps brings me to the 3rd challenge I want to highlight. Most of the data we collect are so-called points of interest which you can project on a map, but to truly make sense of it, you need context. And unfortunately, for most of the places where we work, existing base maps are badly outdated and freely available satellite imagery lacks detail, as you can see on the left here. Because ordering new, high-resolution imagery is way too expensive, we have started to look at alternatives. What you see on the right is a spectacularly detailed image of the exact same area, which we generated using special software to process hundreds of photos taken from a drone. Here you see one of my colleagues flying the quadrocopter drone equipped with a GoPro camera. With the Excites group, we have made it our mission to spread our approach to participatory mapping to other contexts and to places beyond Central Africa. This is why currently one of my colleagues is working with an indigenous community living in Acre province, deep in the Brazilian Amazon. Besides our own projects, there's a growing list of environmental, humanitarian, and other organizations that have expressed interest in applying our methodology and technology. And to ease the adoption of the technology, Sapelli has been designed to be generic and versatile. Nothing about the app is specific to trees, forests, or logging, because much like a web browser renders any content that is fed to it in the form of HTML, Sapelli supports an infinite variety of data collection surveys described in a language that people with basic computing skills but no prior programming experience can learn in a few hours. For example, these 20 lines of relatively simple code are enough to design a pictorial decision tree about modes of transport. So I would like to invite anyone who is interested, either from a practitioner's or a developer's point of view, to download the free Sapelli app and try it out. We are all consumers of products that can be traced back to the rainforest, and we all stand to lose should they disappear. While much of what I've been talking about is still a work in progress, I would like to invite anyone who is excited, interested, or even annoyed to join our conversation about the opportunities, challenges, and risks of applying citizen participation and new technology to protect natural resources and support those that depend on them. Thank you.